Welcome back to Hurley's Hobbies. Well, today I am going to start the build on the GeeBee R3. Um, to start off, the the front, not the firewall, but the front. I guess it would be the firewall. But on this plane, and the way the plans are, they only had this front as an eighth inch thick, and I don't think that was thick enough. So I laser cut a quarter-inch piece and glued it to the eighth inch, so it's actually 3/8 of an inch thick. So that's one modification I made to it. And when I was just fitting it together before I glued it, the way it came is these go in here. Um, this was actually an eighth inch over this farther. Well, when it did that, it made the engine box wasn't square with the front of the plane. It was leaning upward. So I had to cut an eighth inch out of this. I checked the plans and it's supposed to be square. So I did that. I did my measurement. I measured everything off the plans. And for some reason it was an eighth inch off. And then I had to put a notch in it for F3 to fit in, because F3 fits back here. And to fit in there right, that wasn't notched right either, because it's supposed to be flush on the top. So I had to notch it down in on both of them too. So just if you end up building this, building one of these, that's just the first things I've run into so far. So, but I did epoxy the front firewall together. So now I'm going to put the motor box together before I start fitting in everything else. I want to get the motor box all together in the rib F1, F2, and F3. I want to get all of those set up first. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm actually going to epoxy it together. I'm not just going to wood glue it. I'm actually going to epoxy this together. So the first thing I want to do is get this epoxied in where it goes. This side, get it epoxied in. Get the other side epoxied in. And let those set. Make sure it's square both ways. So that'd be square with the front of the firewall and everything. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is get this in there. See, I notched that. I should explain. I notched that quarter-inch. I notched the quarter-inch piece right here. So this will go into it because it's supposed to come all the way up to the eighth inch. So I notched that so it actually fits in there. And it is actually square and everything else. So that's the first thing I'm going to do is mix up some epoxy and get that in, get it where it goes, square, clamp it in. So it's just 5-minute epoxy. And then once I get that one set, I'll move on to the other side. So here I'm just applying epoxy, make sure it's on everywhere and there's not no dry areas or nothing. And I'm going to start clamping it. Make sure it's clamped tight right through here. And make sure there's no bows, it's not bowing up off of it. Make sure everything's square. And just keep double checking your squareness on everything. And then I'll notice that the one side doesn't want to stay in there, so I'm going to clamp it down here. And I'm not like over clamping, I'm just like lightly holding it in place, because you'll see it'll want to fall off on me. So then I tighten it up a little bit more, cleaning all the epoxy up, because you're going to be putting some triangle pieces in there, 45 pieces in there, and just make sure there's no bows in it. Make sure everything's square. So I'm gonna let that set for a few minutes, and like 10 minutes, and then I can do the other side. All right, I got the clamps off, and I checked it. It's all square. It's all really square this way. It's all square on this side. It's all square this way. So we're all good. That one's all set. So now I'm gonna do the other side and get that side epoxied on. And so I didn't say it in the beginning, but actually all these parts, I laser cut all these parts myself. All the wing ribs, everything for this plane, I laser cut on my own laser. There's some videos I have. If you go back, you can see how I did it. I didn't do like a real in-depth video of cutting them all out, but I did cut all this myself. If you'd like to see more on laser cutting out ribs and stuff, even though I don't have the next plane ready to cut out yet, but I can do that in the future. Just in case you're interested. What I did is I don't know if I told everybody, but I bought these plans for this plane. This is a 104-inch GeeBee R3 off of eBay. Then I went back and I bought the PDF, and the PDF file on a laser disc, and that's the PDF is what I use to cut this out. So, and then I have the sheet plans to build on. So in the future, some of my other plans, I can take those plans to, like, and for instance, I use my local UPS store. They actually can take these plans and scan them and put it to PDF for me. So then I can laser cut them out. So let's mix up some more. Now when I get to the back for the ribs for like the stringers and stuff, I'm probably just gonna wood glue those on. Depends on what they are, but most likely I'll use wood glue for those. But this the front engine box and stuff, and with the wing ribs root mount to some of these ribs and stuff, all that is gonna get epoxied. And there is some angle pieces that got to go in here on these, and then the front motor box has to have angle pieces on the inside and everything. So pretty much all that right now I plan on actually epoxying all that together. I just want to make sure it's nice and strong with epoxy. Okay, I got both sides of those all in, and so now I need to put the motor mount in. I'm going to glue the motor mount in there. So instead of fast forwarding through here, I was going to explain to you a little bit why I started the GeeBee. I started the GeeBee because I'm getting to the point where I'm going to be down because I got to have warmer weather to paint the Corsair. I still haven't fiberglassed the fuselage yet, but I'm going to get back on that here once I get this one so far. And then I got to put the rails in for the slide canopy, but I want to fiberglass the fuse before I do that so I don't get fiberglass resin into the rails. And you know, people haven't really been watching the fiberglass video. There's quite a few fiberglass videos out there, and people have been saying they've been getting bored lately with them. And so I'm just trying to come up with other things to keep the channel growing. I'm almost, I think I'm above 960 subscribers now, you know, and I'm just trying to keep people interested in the channel. So that's why I all of a sudden jumped on this. I want to get this so far, and then I can start working on the Corsair, and I can work on this. And then you got to remember that I'm a paver operator. I'm also a CDL driver. I drive my own lowboy to deliver my paver to my job site, but it's for asphalt paving. So I'm really busy in the summer, and I want to have projects so when I get spare time, I can work on stuff. So the, I'm not done with the Corsair. We're going to continue with the Corsair, and I just want to have get this project going too, so I can also work on this when I'm down on the Corsair. So if anybody's curious why all of a sudden I just started building this, and people seem to like the build videos, a little bit better, like putting the planes together, and they really are more interested in that. So like I say, I'm just trying to keep the channel growing and keep people interested in the channel. All right, I got that epoxied in, so now I'm gonna put the top on. That's the bottom one. Top. So I'm gonna put the top one on and epoxy that in. And I think I'm gonna leave the bottom out for now, so I can get in there. So I think I'm not gonna epoxy the bottom on right away. So, so first we'll get this one. We'll get some more epoxy mixed up and get this top on. Well, I just wanted to talk a little bit about, where I live. I live in Michigan, about a half hour south of Flint. I was born in Flint, but then when I was about 9 years old, my parents moved up to the Tawas area, Sand Lake area, and I lived up there for most of my life. And then I turned around from there, and I was a flooring installer. I owned a flooring installation company, and my before my knees got bad, because I did it for like 27 years, I got done. I went out in the oil field because my youngest son was out in the oil field, and I was interested in that, and that's where I got my CDL. And I worked out in North Dakota, in Williston, for about 4 or 5 years, and then I ended up coming back to Flint because my wife was here for most of the time, and I would travel back and forth to see her. And I worked here for almost another year, and then my youngest son was living up in Alaska, and he wanted help getting the flooring installation started up there for him. And so I had moved to Alaska for almost a year. Well, my wife remained here, and I would fly home and see her, and then and then I ended up moving back, and then a little while later he ended up coming back. He ended up moving back to Michigan, and so now he's here, and so he lives by me here, and rode motocross with him for a while, and then back in like 2010, I got out of motocross around there, and got back into RC planes again, and I've been going with RC planes. I don't ride motocross anymore. My son doesn't. Once I got out of it, he eventually got out of it, and we have like side by side and four wheelers and stuff, but I really don't even have time to do that anymore. So, my son is actually interested in RC planes, and eventually he would like to get into it and have me teach him how to do it. And he actually came to work where I worked for a while, but now he's at a golf course, and he works at a golf course and stuff. So he he's doing good. So he still plans on someday moving back to Alaska, and because he just loves Alaska and the whole freedom you have up there in Alaska more than even in the southern states. So it's just Alaska is a different it's a whole different, you know, ball game than living down here in the lower 48. But I'll probably talk about Alaska a little bit more in a future video, and the views, and Alaska is just, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful country up there, and but it's not for everybody. But I just thought I would give you a little background into where I came from and where I've been, and like I say, I'll talk about Alaska in a future video and explain to you guys. Well, this video is getting quite long, so I'm going to end the video here. If you like what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you on the next one. Keep it building. All right, we're going to let that sit.